Hey guys, welcome back to Seller Sessions, Thursday, 4 p.m. BST. Welcome to the studio, or your own studio at 2 a.m. in the morning over in China. A good friend of mine, Chris Davey, who I've known since 2015. He came to a London pub. He was back from China and we hung out from there and we've been good friends since. He should have been on the show long before that. He's been on to do some of the failed products. I think you've done a couple of episodes with me there, but today's going to be your in-depth. Before we get into your in-depth, do you want to let people know what you've been up to this week? I'm going to share to the groups. And
yeah, I've been working my ass off actually, just like normal, I've been developing a lot of new products.
Yeah.
Like in 2 days, I developed I drew and developed 5 new products to send out for 3D printing.
Yeah.
Super busy. And like I said to you before we jumped on the call today, China had been attacking my VPN, and I was a bit worried that I weren't going to be able to talk to you. But as it turns out, we don't need the VPN for this, which is great.
Excellent.
Very unusual as well.
And I must also say is a big thank you, because you got me my first international speaking gig related to Amazon. You set me up with Global Sources for April 2016. So that was my first international gig, and you smoothed the path there. So I want to say a big thank you for that as well. Right, let's take it back, beginnings to childhood. Were you entrepreneurial at the very beginning, or is it something that you developed over years? Let's take it back to
Okay.
lemonade stand, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I'm pretty old now, so it's difficult to remember back that far, but I'll tell you what I can remember. So basically, when I was small, my parents used to do 10-pin bowling semi-professionally. Yeah. And that meant that I would regularly get dropped off at my grandparents' house 2 or 3 times a week. And my granddad was ex-Navy. And he would teach me stuff when I was there, but I didn't realize I was learning. So when I would go there, he would always have things for me to take apart. I remember taking vacuum cleaners apart and washing machines apart. I remember him explaining to me from his old war books, how hand grenades work when I'm 8 years old,
Yeah.
So as far as entrepreneurial goes back then, I wasn't really entrepreneurial, but I was kind of getting set up to learn engineering stuff by my granddad. I went to school, hated it. First day at school, broke my elbow. Didn't go back to school for another 6 weeks. Basically, I didn't really like school. I was kind of a loner. I don't really remember anything until I got to sort of the high school time. Before that, I can't even remember school that much.
Yeah.
So I got to the high school. It was a bit different, didn't know anyone, started afresh. Still quite a loner. Still, didn't really do well at school. The thing was I was terrible at English, but I was excellent at maths and science. So I kind of ended up being in the top sets at school for maths and science, and the bottom set for English. In fact, we had language learning French or something like that, and I wasn't able to go to learning French because I needed to go and have extra English lessons.
Yeah.
So I kind of did okay, mid-level grades at school, and then kind of left at 16 years old. And basically my grandma worked for this company called Bowers and Wilkins, and this company, they had about 30 staff back then, and she was actually the tea lady. So she would go there in the morning and the afternoon and make tea for all the staff. And she asked one of the guys there, is there a temporary job? Because basically I was supposed to be leaving school, and then I was I was supposed to be going to college, and I kind of left school in June or something like that, and supposed to go to college in September. But I basically got this temporary job at Bowers and Wilkins, which was in August 1986. So a long time ago. And I stayed at that company for 29 years.
Right, so you come straight out of the school. You was on your way of getting the watch then and retiring then.
I really was. I was almost to the 30 years at that company. And basically, in that 30 years, though, I'd done so many different jobs. When I started at that company, I only had about 30 staff. When I left there, I had about 1,100 staff. So it had grown massively. And because of that, I'd kind of learned a lot along the way. You know, I started working the production line, and then I worked in the warehouse, and then I was like in charge of the warehouse. And then I did a lot of warehousing stuff, like off-site warehousing, finished goods warehousing. And then, so I was dealing a lot with like products coming in, unloading containers, loading containers, all this sort of stuff. I was kind of managing a lot of that, mainly for raw materials. And we had far too much stock. So this was like back in 1998. At this company, we had like far too much stock. And a job came up in purchasing, and at a company that had this great idea, which was like, we've got far too much stock, so we know what we'll do. We'll put the purchasing manager in charge of the warehouse, because he's the guy who's ordering too much stock, so he can suffer the pain, And so basically, I ended up working for the purchasing manager, and then a job came up in purchasing. I applied for it. I did an interview. He must have liked what I said, and basically, I moved from running a warehouse to basically being like a junior member of the purchasing team. And that was in 1998. And I remember actually a couple of key things that got me that job. One was I had a computer, and the second one was I knew how to use email.
So you spent 30 years there. Let's dial back a bit. I want to go back to the childhood. You said you hated school. I want to see what helped build you as an entrepreneur. Did you hate school because you had learning difficulties, or you just didn't like the system of school? And what was it that?
To be honest, I don't know whether it was because of that reason, but basically, like, I know I'm dyslexic, and that was why I was struggling with like English language and stuff like that. But back then, they kind of didn't know too much about dyslexia. So,
well, I mean, how old are you now?
50.
Oh, you're 50, right? So I'm 6 years away from you. But when we were back at school, there wasn't names and titles for these. We were just the thick shits in school, basically. So you were treated slightly different ways, like almost punished for falling behind. So you'd have to do the extra work. And so, what about in terms of inspirations as a child? Who did you look to in terms of parents and stuff?
No, my granddad and my grandma, really, you know, I looked to them more than I looked to my parents. Like, you know, there was a point when I'm like 12 years old where I'm repairing stuff at home, and like my dad, and I'm, you know, helping my dad fix his car. He doesn't know what he's doing, and I'm, you know, I know a lot more about it than he knows.
And so, how was the family dynamic? Was it good as a kid? Did you enjoy outside of school?
You know, when I was a child, I didn't really go out too much. Like, it wasn't until like maybe like, I don't know, when I was around 12 years old, when I was at my grandma's house, then I used to go out a lot because I had like a friend base around there because I used to be there quite often. But for as far as school friends go, I didn't have so many school friends. Like, I had maybe like 4 or 5, I guess. So.
Were you kind of introverted then, and you were just basically into mechanics and stuff? Did you?
Actually, no. I was really into music. Actually, I was back then. I was really into Madonna, and I used to go to a lot of record fairs, and I used to do a lot of, you know, like almost like trading of music stuff. So I would go to the record fairs. I'd be looking for like rare versions of Madonna records and stuff like that. Re-edits and
remixes and stuff like that.
Yeah, you know, like I remember my grandma bought me one birthday. She asked me what I wanted, and I had all the Madonna singles on Japanese import. You know, it's like.
Cool.
So, but I mean, one thing about that I need to add is like when I was 12 years old. So I had a friend who lived near my grandma who was like 15 or 16 years old. So it's like quite a bit older than me, and basically, Bowers and Wilkins, which was the company that I used to work for, they were literally just around the corner from where my grandma used to live. And basically, this older boy, he used to take me around to their rubbish bins, and we used to go through their rubbish bins, and we would scavenge all these bits of speakers. at 12 years old, I had like Bowers and Wilkins speakers at my house, like all built from parts that I'd got from the rubbish bins. I had like, you know, a good amplifier. I had a good, like, expensive record deck that I'd bought secondhand. You know, my first week's wages, I bought a CD player.
Yeah.
So
if we jump forward again now, because obviously you're at one place for almost 30 years, that's quite a record in modern times. What we kind of discovered what's built you to this day in terms of you've gone from one job to another. You dealt with containers, you dealt purchasing, you've got a background in terms of some mechanical work and stuff. Where was it when you decided to break free? Was you still within the job when you discovered Amazon, or what was pre that? Because I mean, the whole China thing, how long have you been there now, and when did you start doing the whole China thing, going there?
Okay, so let's rewind a little bit. Like 1996, I got a computer. And like basically that was because like one of my staff had a computer. I went to his house and he showed me the internet, and then I like bought a computer. And I think around 1998, I registered an eBay account. And at that point, I started selling on eBay, you know, little bits and pieces, which progressed to going to a lot of car boot sales. I don't know what you call them in America, maybe flea markets or something like that. And basically, I used to buy a lot of stuff and sell it on eBay. I mean, that got to a point where in like the 2000s, we were doing somewhere in the region like $100,000 a year selling stuff on eBay. But it was really hard work. We never sold the same thing twice normally, you know. So you imagine having to create all them listings, bring all this stuff home, photograph it, clean it, pack it, send it all out. So, you know, that's kind of where the e-commerce part come from. But where that really started, I don't know. I just found I had a really good eye. I could go to a car boot sale and pick something up for like 50 pence and sell it for £100. And I would regularly do stuff, you know, like that with like huge margins like that. So
when was your first trip to China then?
First trip to China was 2010, and I moved to China in 2012. So
right. And how did that story come about? If you give me a timeline from 10 to 12.
Okay, so in 2006, the company I worked for built a factory in China, and basically I was working in the sourcing department in the UK, and more stuff like that sourcing department in the UK had maybe like 25 or 30 staff when I was working there around that period, and more stuff was moving to China, sourcing of raw materials mainly. I mean, we were only building a few things in China. We were mainly buying all the materials there, but we didn't really have a good team out there. What we had like a sourcing agent in Taiwan who was helping us buy everything from China. So rewind back to 2010, I moved to the sourcing department in 1998, and I actually worked my way up in the sourcing department like rapidly. You know, very quickly I was dealing with like all the most expensive products. I was, you know, all the most complicated things to buy. I was dealing with them. Bearing in mind, I just started there as a junior, and I just come from the warehouse of, you know, a few months before. I'm suddenly literally flying nearly every week to somewhere in Europe to visit suppliers. And so I had magnet suppliers in China that I was dealing with. And there was this big crisis where basically China said that they were going to limit the amount of rare earth materials that they were going to sell to the outside world. And what they did was that like made the price of the magnets like triple in price. So we were spending like $1 million, and all of a sudden overnight we're spending like $3 million. So like my CEO at the time was like, yeah, you need to get on the plane and go to China and see what you can sort out or find out. So that was kind of how I ended up coming the first time to China. Living in China, that came about from basically, I came back from China, and I always wanted to travel to the Far East, and my ex-wife didn't really you know, like she wanted to go to Tenerife or something like that, you know. So
where the sun is, yeah.
yeah. So, and I wanted to go to like Thailand and places like that, and she didn't want to go. And I went to China, and I really loved it in China. It was really good, you know. And I came back, and I felt kind of like a bit depressed, and I felt like unhappy. I think, you know, back in 2006-07, I was like really sick, and I didn't feel like loved, and I didn't feel like well looked after during that period of time, you know, when I was like really, really sick and can't go to work.
You've got gut issues, haven't you?
Yeah, stomach issues, who knows what they are, million tests, you know, no results, basically, everything's fine. Yeah. So I was really, really sick. You know, I was like sleeping 22 hours a day for like pretty much 6 months before I started to recover partly. And I just didn't feel like I was treated good in that period of time.
What, is that from your ex-wife? You didn't feel like the support network was there?
Yeah, I just felt like she was just like, you know, I wouldn't say didn't believe me, but was almost like, you know, because you couldn't really see anything. That's the problem.
This is the problem, is that when you do have that and no one can see it, is everyone says just pull up your bootstraps.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not tangible, and people don't understand brain fog unless you get it and they suffer for it. And that's always your battle. Is one is your health, and the other thing is people going, look, you've been like this for weeks. You need to sort yourself out. And
yeah, exactly. Yeah, at all levels, the people at my company, my wife, the doctor, all different levels. Yeah, like, you know, you're sick and there's something wrong with you, and basically then they just try to turn it around to some sort of mental health thing that it definitely wasn't. Yeah,
that's bullshit. But
yeah, exactly. They don't know what it is, so they're like, oh, we'll go here with it, and we can get rid of him. So basically, I didn't feel like I was treated good then. You know, she's like coming home from work saying, like, you've been home all day, you haven't even like cooked me anything to eat. You know, I was like, I'm literally feeling like I'm going to die. You know, so I didn't feel that great. But by 2010, I'd obviously built up enough recovery that I could travel to China, even though I still wasn't feeling that great. But I went.
Quick question for you: were you pushed out the door at work as well? Were they using your, because you had to take time off? Was it like they found means of ways to navigate you out the door?
Yeah, partly. I mean, they did treat me really, really good at the beginning. Like, you know, I didn't go to work for about 9 months, and like they treated me really good. And I went back and I recovered pretty well, but I was still like struggling for a number of years, even when I was in China. So, I mean, what really happened though was I went to China and I was like, I want to travel to China. I want to be able to travel where I want. I don't feel loved. I just made a decision. I'm like, I want to get a divorce. So I decided to get a divorce, and, you know, I have a lot of weird coincidences in my life. One guy I used to work with suddenly standing next to my desk. He works in Birmingham now. He just happened to pop in. I hadn't seen him for about 3 or 4 years. And he's like, I'm like, oh, what are you doing here? And he's like, well, I've got an apartment over in Littlehampton, and the tenant just moved out, and I just come to, you know, give it a coat of paint and then get it re-rented. I'm like, oh, I'll rent it. So basically, and I was like, you don't need to give it a coat of paint. I'll paint it for you as well. So, and so basically I moved over there.
Over where? Sorry, you said Littlehampton.
It's in Littlehampton, yeah. So I was about 10 miles away from Worthing, where I was living. Yeah. So it was good to get that extra little bit of space as well, away from my ex-wife. And, you know, I made that decision to do it, and I didn't really look back from then onwards. And the thing is one of the company directors, he was talking to my boss at the time, and he was talking, there was a lot of problems in China, and he said, oh, you know, Chris would be really good in China. Like, he didn't say it directly to me. He said it to my boss, who's like sitting next to me. Yeah. And then, you know, he kind of left and he didn't say anything to me. And I actually sent him an email and I asked him, like, you know, you said this, were you serious or joking? And he's like, deadly serious. And so I'm like, well, okay, I'm kind of interested, you know, to know more details on it. So then he didn't talk to me for about another 6 months about it. And then all of a sudden he was like, oh, can you go tomorrow, sort of thing, you know?
Yeah. So you just straight on the flight, you gave up where you were living, like it was a rental, and then went all in.
the thing was, because I was renting that from a friend, we didn't have any contract or anything. And I'd already told him, like, when I'd had the initial conversation with the boss guy, I'd already told him, oh, I might need to go to China at short notice. I don't know when. And he's like, well, whenever, just let me know, So it's all kind of good, And I just kind of like hopped on a plane, went to China, and there was like 7 expats working at the company in China, so there was some foreigners there, most of which I already knew had come from the UK, and I come there, but I didn't kind of fit in with them either. They're kind of like people that wanted to go out every night and get drunk, and like they would go out like 7 nights a week, and I did that for a little while. It was like, oh, I'm on holiday.
Yeah, but you burned out, didn't you?
Well, I just kind of got bored with it, to tell the truth. At the end of the day, I was just searching for a relationship when I was outside. Really, that was why I was out. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of what happened there. And then I was only supposed to be there for a year. My contract was only for a year, and then I was supposed to go back to England. And like a year passed, and nobody mentioned about going back. And then, there were some changes at the company. They fired the general manager and they brought in someone else. And my job changed a lot. My job anyway, I was kind of, I don't know who's watching this, but I don't really care. I was kind of sent there as a spy. So the job was kind of made up. So they wanted me to do a job there, but they also wanted me to report back what was going on in China. So
how
I was
did
kind
that feel on your conscience, though? Like, obviously you want to support your company. Did it split not your integrity, but did it make you think, you didn't feel comfortable with it?
Actually, it was kind of funny, right? So they asked me to pretty much like keep an eye on a couple of people and some suppliers, and literally I arrived and one of them people left like 1 month later anyway, and the other one they fired a few months after that. So it's kind of, I didn't actually report anything back the whole time I was there.
So let's get into the products. Let's talk when you first discovered Amazon. Let you finish.
Okay, so I like I said, I sold on eBay from '98, and around 2007, I was selling a lot. I was buying and selling a lot of CDs and computer games, amongst other things. So we would buy a lot of, stuff like that. And what I found was you can sell this on Amazon, and you just need to put in the UPC code. It's like really fast to list it, You just find that if the listing's already on there, you just put the UPC code in, and you're pretty much done. You can sell it on there. So I started selling on Amazon in 2007 in the UK, but back then I never kind of realized it. I mean, it wasn't a big opportunity. There was no FBA or anything like that. I was sending it from home, and I was already at the post office like 5 days a week with 2 of them really big blue IKEA bags, posting stuff out every lunchtime. So it was already like more than a full-time job. And so fast forward back to about 2014, I'm sitting at my desk, and kind of like you said earlier, being like sick, taking time off sick when I wasn't well, even when I'm in China, they kind of use that against me to basically get rid of me. And that was in the planning for a year. Obviously I don't know that officially, but I know it.
You got a vibe, didn't you? Yeah.
They were taking work away from me. I wasn't getting invited to meetings that I should be in, stuff like this. They brought in someone else who's like the same level as me, and all sorts of stuff going on like this. So I was kind of bored sitting at my desk, and I used, we're a speaker and a headphone manufacturer, so we were allowed to sit there with headphones on all the time. I'm in China. I can't understand a word anyone's saying anyway. So I'm sitting there with my headphones on, I'm listening to music, and then I ventured into listening to podcasts. And I started to listen to things like John Lee Dumas, Entrepreneur on Fire, and a few other ones like that. There was no real Amazon related podcast back then. There was I remember I listened to the first episode of the Scott Volker one, And I actually messaged him by email, and he actually invited me on there. But I thought maybe I shouldn't go on there. It might cause me some problem with my job, so I didn't go on there. Yeah, that was like maybe episode 3, you know.
Yeah.
Because he was talking about Canton Fair and he had it all like wrong, and I was just like corrected him on a lot of stuff. And so basically, I was sitting at my desk, and then just one day I was out for a walk, and I was listening to this podcast, and they had this guy on there who's doing as an FBA, and he was doing $30,000 a year. He was a month. Sorry, he was from Belgium. He was buying stuff from China, and he was selling it in America. He'd never been to America. He'd never been to China. I'm like, God, I'm sitting here in China, like, you know, I'm buying stuff for a living. Buying's my background. I'm sitting in China. Yeah, I really need to start looking at this Amazon stuff again. Yeah. So I'm just sitting there, nothing to do. So I started researching products, you know, and I was like, oh, what can I sell? I started researching all these products, and basically, you know, everything I looked at, back in 2015, everything I looked at I thought was oversaturated. Yeah. So I decided, if I'm going to be a success of this, I need to design something that's like better than everything else. And, you know, I was used to receiving drawings and color specs and gloss levels and all this sort of stuff from my jobs. And I was used to like designing packaging, working with packaging suppliers to come up with packaging designs and all this sort of stuff. And I was like, I should design my own thing. So I was like, come up with an idea. And then I'm like, right, I've got this idea, but it's in my head. Now, I try to draw and I can't really draw. Yeah, I'm like, I don't look anything like what's in my head. And so then I went to YouTube and I taught myself how to draw in CAD. And basically then I CAD'd out the product. I watched all these videos on YouTube. I CAD'd it all out. I colored it all. I built up a PowerPoint presentation. I found the supplier. It wasn't a supplier I already dealt with because I was still sitting at my desk in my job at this time. And, you know, one thing a lot of people don't do is when they don't know how to do something, they don't ask the supplier. Yeah, I asked the supplier a lot of questions, you know, like, oh, how thick can this material be? How thin can this material be, etc., to understand how to make this product correctly. So that was kind of how I got into it. And then my product was like maybe 1 or 2 months away from launching. And my boss comes to my desk and he's like, have you got a minute? And I'm like, oh, okay, it's probably going to happen now. I've been waiting for this to happen for about a year. Yeah? And then basically it was like, oh, you know, we want you to leave.
And then what do you do there? Where did the money come from once you lost that job?
Well, basically, when I got divorced, we sold our house in the UK. And so I had half that money. I'd been earning a reasonable amount of money in China, and I've been spending hardly anything, you know, like the company were paying my rent and all this sort of stuff for quite a while. So I wasn't really spending any money. I was just earning it. So I had quite a bit of money built up in the bank, and then basically they didn't really have a leg to stand on to make me redundant. And so they basically needed to pay me extra to sign an agreement to leave. Yeah. And I'd been wanting to leave for a couple of years, and I'd been saying, like, you know, I want to leave to my girlfriend at the time. She kept telling me, oh, you can't leave, you're paid really well. I got like 4 flights a year to the UK, like 2 weeks all expenses paid, hotels and stuff like that in the UK every year. And she's like, yeah, you can't leave. And I was just like, so when they said about leaving, I'm like, oh, I got a valid reason to leave now. You know, I wasn't, even though I've been there 29 years, I kind of felt like I should be sad, but I didn't feel sad at all. I just left, and it was just like, from the next day, I was just like, okay, start working on my own business.
So you can't talk about your products. I think some of them you're still selling today, aren't you? From 2015.
Yeah, I mean, some of the ones from back in 2015, like 2016, definitely still selling some of them. Yeah. The first one I designed, I can talk about that one because I don't sell that anymore. I don't sell anything like it. So basically, that was a case for a speaker, and all these cases are on Amazon. They're all made in China. They're all like $11, and basically, it was for a competitor, and that competitor, they had like 5 different colors of their speakers, and all the cases on Amazon were black. And I'm like, well, if I bought this blue speaker, I'd really want a blue case to go with it. So I just designed a blue one, a red one, a white one, etc., etc. And guess what? As soon as it hit Amazon, people were like, I want that red one, I want that blue one. I didn't do it, I didn't do any special thing with PPC or launches or anything like that. It was on like page 17 on day one. I thought this is never going to get to page 1. But it was there after 6 days. So somebody's going to page 17.
Yeah. Excellent. So that kicked things off, and you rapidly grew from there, didn't you? You hit your first million in 18 months or so?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I mean, we kind of plateaued at 1 million for a while because it was mainly because I kind of just like sat back and relaxed almost. But, the last year we were like up 80%. This year we're up 83% at the minute. And like the year before last, it was pretty level. I said to my girlfriend the other day, I said, I'm targeting to get to 5 million, like by the end of next year. So, we got a lot of new products. This COVID thing's like, I kind of like, don't feel like going out. I got a low immune system. I don't really want to go out and hang around. I'm a bit nervous. So
being in China for you, how is COVID? I mean, I know that everyone's tired of talking about it, but as an expat being in China, you speak the language a bit, right? You're not super fluent. Is that right? You know enough to get around.
Yeah, to be honest, my language skills have got less and less and less, actually. Since I met Cindy, her English is so good. I hardly ever use Chinese. All of her friends speak great English. So I really use Chinese. Most of my, I don't have a lot of expat friends, actually, but most of my friends are like, great English level. So, as far as COVID goes in China, at the moment, it seems like not here at all. Like all testing, like all social distancing. Like, I mean, everyone's still wearing masks, nearly everyone. And, I wouldn't expect any more in China. They were wearing masks before COVID came. So, obviously more people now. But, I mean, cinemas are open, like all flights and everything are all running normally internally. Disney's open, everything's open. We had a couple of cases in Shenzhen, like maybe 1.5 months ago, 2 months ago, and what they did was they went, okay, 2 people have tested with COVID. They shut that whole area down, 350,000 people, and basically they tested them in 24 hours.
Wow.
And then released them like 5 days later.
Yeah, you wouldn't get away with that in the UK. They would have none of it. So going off COVID again. So let's get back to the products. How many products have you designed, and do they all have patents on them?
Patents, we've only got 3 at the moment. A lot of our products have like life cycles. So generally they've only got like 2 or 3 year life cycle. So it's
Can you talk about some of the ones that you did design that they've gone through the end of the cycle? Is there anything?
Yeah, I mean, I can talk about the one that we did that I talked about was a disaster. It wasn't really a disaster. It was a great product, yeah? So we designed a stand for the Amazon Echo, and it was a great product, yeah? And, when I first thought of that, I went to Amazon and I didn't do it because nobody else had done it, which is, in hindsight, was stupid. I then... like 9 months later, I was tidying my computer up and I found this original design I'd done. I went back to Amazon, found somebody was like doing a stand which looked absolutely awful and was doing $50,000 a month. And I was like, shit, why didn't I do this? And then it took me around another 9 months to develop it. So,
and you've had some problems in China. You okay to talk publicly about the story where you had to go up to the to someone on a stand? Do you remember what I'm talking about? Where you were at a conference and is it a trade show? And you see your products being displayed.
Oh yeah. That was a good one. Yeah. So basically, that was actually the first product we did. So we did like 2 batches with the supplier, and it needed some tooling. The tooling wasn't expensive. It was like maybe £200 or £300, so it wasn't like hugely expensive. But at that time, I wasn't a particularly big seller, you know. And basically, the first delivery was crap. The second delivery was really good. The third delivery was terrible. Yeah, and I go to the factory and inspect all of my own products generally, or Cindy will go for me. She's pretty good now. She knows what my requirements are. And basically, they were like, "We don't want to make this anymore for you. Your quality standards is higher than Apple." And that was exactly what the woman said to me. Yeah. And I'm like, okay. And then I spent like 4 days there, 100% inspecting like 2,000 pieces of this product with their inspectors. They were like, "We're just going to throw it away and like, you know, cancel this order. We'll just refund you." And I'm like, I don't really want to do that. Yeah, I'm going to make a lot of money from this. I don't want to tell them that though. Anyway, so I sorted through it all. And after that, I found another supplier. The supplier, we like pay for a new tool, another £200 or £300. Like we asked for the tool back from the old one, and they were basically not wanting to give it back to us. And I was like, okay, it was only a couple of £100. I'm not going to worry about it. So I didn't particularly worry about it too much. But then what happened was I'm in Hong Kong at the exhibition, and I saw them actually displaying my product on their stand. And basically, it was the lady. It was the CEO of that company was a lady. So there was basically a lady and a sales girl there, and we ended up getting into like, you know, quite a big argument. I was like, "Why are you displaying this? We got like a non-disclosure." I got my Dropbox. Was like showing them I got like a signed non-disclosure with you, and they were kind of like ignoring me and didn't want to talk to me. And I was kind of getting louder and louder. And I'm like, "You copied our products and you're selling it on the stand." Like start shouting quite loudly. Yeah. All the customers that they had there were all like looking and like leaving. And then
that was 2000. I think that was October 2017. I think I was there. I weren't with you when that happened, but I think you told me later at night when we went to the steakhouse with a few people.
Yeah, I think you were. Yeah, you were definitely there. I remember you and Anthony Lee, and we were like had a cup of coffee downstairs somewhere.
That's right. Yeah, because that was not. It was over at Hong Kong Island. HKTDC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, HKTDC. It was like Mega Show or the Electronic Show. I can't remember.
Yeah, I think it's Mega Show April, and then HKTDC is November because they switched, didn't they? They don't necessarily.
Mega Show's in October normally.
So it would have been the Mega Show, and then HKTDC would have been in April, I think. But yeah, anyway, it was interesting.
I managed to like. I just stayed there and I said, like, "How many times have you seen me at exhibitions?" And the girl was like, "A lot." And I'm like, "Would you want me to coming up causing this hassle, scaring off all your potential customers every time I see you? I want my tool back." Yeah. And she was like, "Well, why do you want it back? You said you already made another one." I'm like, "I did, but they made it and it's not perfect." Yeah. The product doesn't look 100% the same as the one you made. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then eventually they agreed to let me have it back, and I sent someone to collect it the first thing the following morning. So
cool. And so let's talk some of the events as well, because that's grown a lot since 2016. You put on 2 between the 3 periods of phase 1, 2, and 3. You do between 1 and 2, and is it 1 and 2? Yeah. So you do 1, then your party, then 2, then your party, and then you got 3. Is that right? Or do you do 3 now?
No, we do during phase 2 and during phase 3. So normally, like if Canton Fair's running, we'll be like the 3rd day of phase 2 and the 3rd day of phase 3.
Yeah,
so,
and that grew out of a little bar, didn't it? I mean, it started off, was it Macaui's, I think?
Yeah, actually, it didn't even start at Macaulay's. We actually started in some sort of Turkish restaurant, actually. In fact, I remember we started in another bar, but I can't even remember what that was called. But like the first one, we had like 2 people, and then the second one, we had like 6 people. You know, and it just grew and grew and grew. And some of them people like were at that first one, like or not actually. Even the first one, like are very, very successful Amazon sellers now. And the second one, Shelley and Richard were there at my second one ever with like 6 people. And Mark Ramos, if you know him,
I know Mark.
Yeah, and one other guy, Marshall. I don't know if you know him, but he's a big seller as well. So it really grew. I mean, as persistent, I think we've done like 20 plus now. events, and now we get like 500 or 600 people there.
Yeah, I mean, the last one, it was funny because you sent a car for me, didn't you? Because I was across the road at the hotel having my usual mobile problems, and I kept going to the doorman. Look, mate, I can't fucking find it. I've got no internet connection. Every time I walk out across the road, no one speaks English. He's going, it's just over there. It's just over there. I walked back 3 or 4 times. In the end, I phoned you. Don't worry, I'll send a car. The car turned up. It took longer to book the car than it did actually to get to the event. I'm there late. I've missed an hour and a half or so, hadn't I? And I was literally across the road. If you threw a stone, it would have hit the building from the hotel. And
on the Uber, it said you were 300 meters away.
Yeah, well, okay, I can't throw a stone 300 meters, but it's that close. It was just cracks me up. No, it didn't at the time. But yeah, that one was really good. Like, you got all the sponsorship now. There was a massive turnout. Everyone who was in China, not everyone, but everyone who travels that within the community, it was a big thing. Like, people attend your events over there, and they're good networking events, aren't they? So.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great. I mean, we don't do it for sponsorship or anything like that. I just do it because I like networking with people. Sponsorship was just a side thing. Like, people were asking me, can they sponsor it? And it was like, it was costing me more and more money to put it on, and I was paying for it myself. So
that was my whole point. But obviously, getting a good venue, a nice layout, and everything else, you could turn it into something a bit more spectacular than doing a little meetup down the pub. So, and that's my point, is where it's grown, you've been able to retain better venues and stuff, and the audience has got bigger that are attending. And it's important because I think when people go to China, especially, a lot of people travel alone. They may know people, and China's a big place. It's not going to be one of those, oh yeah, I'll see you around the corner, because your hotel could be 25 kilometers away from the person that you want to meet up with. And one of the important things when you're traveling to China is you're working hard by day, but then you meet up with people in the evening. And having your events there, when people book and plan their China event, and they go, okay, we're going to do here, and we're going to go and visit factories between breakdown between each of the phases, or we're going over to Hong Kong. So they'll go and do 2 of the fairs over there. They'll go over to, obviously, Global Sources and whatever's going on in Hong Kong Island, and then some of the sub-events. And then they'll come back to the mainland, and they'll hit your events as well, along with like the WeChat groups, and they're going out and having dinners each night. And that's really important part of the Chinese experience of when you're going to Canton. So where we are today, right? So you're aiming to hit 5 million end of next year. You planning on an exit at some point?
I keep talking about it, but then I keep adding more and more new products. So then it's kind of like one of them things where it's like, oh, maybe I'll sell the brand. And I'm like, well, I've got 7 new products on the way for that brand. Yeah, maybe I should wait until they get here. And by the time they get here, I've got another 7 new products on the way, So it's like, it's like difficult to get out of. But, I did talk about selling it in 2021, but probably not. Well,
you do know is that when you do decide to sell, if you've got a pipeline, that isn't going to do you any damage in negotiations if they can see a pipeline, especially if you've designed your own products. So in total now, have you designed all of your products like from scratch? Everything you got from the ones that you've rolled off because of the life cycle. So everything you've done is designed.
Some of them have been inspired, but a lot of them are like purely designed, So like even the ones that are inspired, we're definitely not directly copying anyone. Yeah. We're just designing stuff, I just like yesterday I was on the sofa all day, and I just like the night before I had an idea, and I'm like sketching stuff out, and then I've got an industrial designer that works for me. Yesterday I done the whole concept of this product, and today I sent it all to my industrial designer, asked him to finish it and give me back all the drawings and stuff like that, and give me some stuff so we could send out for 3D printing and all that kind of stuff. So
well, I mean, there's one area that we did actually skip, and that's the sourcing business, because you had a sourcing business for a while. You still got it on hand or handed it off?
No, I haven't really got it. So kind of what happened was like, there's not really a lot to talk about. Sourcing is my background. 1998 to 2015, I was doing sourcing for a living. I would say I'm more than a sourcing guy, because I really, really love getting into the processes and finding out how the machines work, how all the parts are made. And, you know, I'm often at the suppliers telling them how to make it better. Yeah. Which some of them like and some of them don't. But, you know, I started a sourcing company when I left BMW, because I was like, oh, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I'll try this Amazon thing. So what I did was I took $15,000 and I stuck it in the business account, and I'm like, okay, with this $15,000, I'll play with this Amazon thing. And to tell the truth, I never added any more money in, and I kind of gradually built up. You know, I never had really cash flow problems. And the sourcing thing, I was like, oh, there's loads of Amazon people out there who want to buy stuff in China, so maybe I can help them. Yeah. But what I got was a lot of people who'd watch, like, you know, Jungle Scout YouTube videos, and were like, they didn't have a clue what they wanted, and were just like, oh, can you make me
a lot of your time?
Yeah, can you make me a blanket? And I'm like, okay, well, you know, like, what sort of size blanket? And they're like, oh yeah, I've got the size. And I'm, what about weight? They're like, weight? What do you mean weight? I'm like, you know, you need to know the weight of a blanket. And in the end, I felt like I'm actually just designing this for them. Yeah, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just do it myself. And I never really found any like great customers to work with for that sourcing business. And sourcing's it's not a nice job anyway. Yeah, be nice to your sourcing people, because they don't earn that much money actually, and it's a pain in the ass job to do. You know, especially. Yeah.
And a lot of people drop off, don't they? So they start with a product, you go through all the process, and then they go, no, we're not going to go with it now. And you've done all that work, and you only get paid at production or your first initial fee.
Yeah, I had one lady actually call me the other day, and sorry if you're listening. Yeah, so I was laying on the sofa, and basically she found our website, which is still sitting there. Yeah, and it's got my phone number on it. And like 11:30 at night, she suddenly calls me, and she's like, "Oh, hello, like, hi. Oh, I wasn't expecting anyone to answer. Is it not 11:30 in China?" I'm like, yeah, it's 11:30 in China. But I saw it come up with Canada, and that worried me that it might be Amazon calling me. Yeah, so I answered it.
Yeah.
And basically she's like, oh, I've got a really big problem. Like, you know, my supplier's like not talking to me, and we've got like this, you know, I've given them this big order and stuff like that. And basically I kept saying like, oh, I'm not really doing sourcing anymore. But she just didn't want to hear it. She just kept telling me, yeah, which is fine, yeah. And I gave her some advice. But at the end of the day, what I told her to realize is she was buying a toy product from a really big factory. It involved 5 other factories, and the last factory needed to put it all in the box and assemble it. Yeah. And her order was like $6,500. For the salesperson, their commission will be somewhere between 1% and 2% of the order value. So their commission would be somewhere in the region of $60 to $120. Yeah. And she's getting worried because she's not going to get it for October. I'm like, this is a toy factory. That sales girl's probably got like huge customers with like really big commission for her that she don't want to mess up on. Yeah. Your one will be far, far, far down the list. So.
Cool. Switching gears, what's your darkest hour before dawn?
I don't know, really. I don't know. I mean, being sick was like the darkest hour, I think. That just taught me to like make the most of what you got when you got your health, sort of thing, you know. I remember after that I was like, you know, booked up, oh, let's go to Dubai for the weekend and stuff like that, you know, because it was just like, oh, you don't know when it's game over, really. And kind of that's after that, I really felt like I was dying. So like, after that was kind of like, you know, and it's really frustrating that nobody can ever find out what's wrong with you. You know, I was at the hospital here, actually. You know, I probably spent $10,000 at the hospital here in the last year as well, having a lot of tests done, hoping they can find out what's wrong with me.
Legacy or money?
It's going to be money, I guess, because I haven't got any kids or anything like that, so I've got no legacy to leave to anyone. So, apart from my girlfriend, of course, which I'll be leaving most of the money.
Excellent. And how would you like to be remembered?
I don't know, really. You know, I just try to help and be friendly to everyone. You know, I've been doing from Gary Huang's 7-Figure Seller Summit. You know, I was doing like 30 minutes free mentoring calls. A lot of their mentoring calls, they're like run for 1.5, 2 hours. But I don't care, yeah, because I was enjoying them. Yeah, I just like helping people out and giving them ideas. You know, so
yeah, that makes sense. Cool. That was your in-depth.
Thanks. I enjoyed it. It's good to see you as well, Danny. Long time no see.
It has. I'm not saying I'm going to be coming back to China anytime soon after my last experience, but I know you come back.
Get you a SIM card before you come, yeah?
What's that?
I said we'll get you a SIM card before you come.
We're not even going to go into that conversation. I went through 6 of them. My God. But you come back to the UK anyway. Do you think you'll be back before Christmas? You're going to pop home, see the family?
I don't think so now, yeah. I mean, I was hoping to be... my original plan for this year was like to be back in the UK between May and July because it was like my 50th birthday and my dad's 80th.
Yeah.
But in the end, couldn't get back. I've actually traveled a lot this year already, though. Surprisingly, I was just traveling at the beginning of the year when nothing was too exciting was happening. So
cool. If people want to reach out to you, not for sourcing, but have other questions, product designing, you know, just hooking up with when they're over in China with your events, etc. What's the best way that they can reach you?
Well, they can find me on Facebook, which is CJ Davey. They can also email me, chris@fbaforyou.com.
Cool.
I'm kind of like stacked up with emails. It might be a little while. Even your email, you know, it's like 4 days. I've not got to it yet.
No worries. That's what WeChat's for anyway. Right, we're going to sign off here. Chris, thank you for coming on. Guys, don't forget, vote now at sellerpole.com. Brought to you by Frasio. Closing date is October 28th. Today is Thursday, so it's time for me to sign off. I won't see you guys back here till Monday for Mindset Monday. Have a wonderful few days, weekend. Take care of yourself. Take care of your family. I'm out of here. I've hoped you've enjoyed the shows this week. We've got a lot more coming next week. Chris, again, thank you for coming in. Take care.